Yasna 34. I think you could keep going with giving them names, but 1. A tone of thankfulness continues, as if in gratitude for better fortunes. The prophet declares that he will bestow upon Ahura with the foremost, according to the measure of the gifts which he has received. Those gifts were the secured immortality, not mere temporal deathlessness, the righteous order and the sovereign power established in holiness, and bestowing the universal weal. 2. The kind of gifts which are proposed for offerings are not sacrificial beasts, are fruits, but the actions of the truly pious citizen, whose soul is intimately united with righteousness, the homage of prayer and the songs of praise, as no piety could exist without strict ecclesiastical regularity. So no ceremonial punctuality was conceived of apart from the honor and charity. See verse 5 in Yas 22. 3. According to the meat offering, the mention of which immediately follows is spoken of as offered with homage to the righteous order and to the divine sovereignty for the benefit of all the sacred settlements, in order to equip the wise man fully as a helpful blessing among the immortals themselves and their adherents. 4. And the fire is likewise mentioned, which was worshipped not so much like Agni as the friendly entity of the hearth and the altar, but more and chiefly like Agni as the priest of the church. Unlike Agni, it is called upon both for inward spiritual strength and for temporal blessings, in various forms, together with vengeance, hurled very much as if in the form of a thunderbolt. Zasta istais, deresta en ungem. And, well, one of the differences, see, respected as an officiating element, but not the same thing as, like, Agni being a god itself. So, 5. To explain, well, I mean, Agni is not really a god, but, that's what they would say. And Agni was, of course, a metaphor for the will as well. 5. To explain what he means by his supplications for the coming of a kingdom and for holy actions, that is, to make it certain that he does not mean punctilious ritualism apart from the noblest charity, he rhetorically asks, "What is your kingdom?" That which Zarathustra establishes and offers to you. 33, verse 14. And what is the kind of prayer? 48:8 and 53:1, which I must use, that I may become yours, your property, in my actions, not to load your priesthood with sacrifices, nor to fatten your princes with booty, as too often in the ricks, nor yet to secure a heavy gift to the poet, but to nourish your poor. This was the essence of the desired sanctity and the sovereign authority. The kingdom of God, exalted and personified as a separate intelligence, is positively said to be something more than a gaudy pageant of material display. Even tava kshatram ya erezig yo dahi dragave vahyo 53:9. See also Vendidad 2, Part 1, where moral duties are lauded. And the composer himself seems to be conscious of the sharply defined differences between such a kingdom and that of the rival religion, and that he immediately adds an interdict: "Such is your kingdom, caring for the righteous poor. Therefore we declare you irreconcilably distinct from the Da'avas and their polluted followers. Ye are beyond them and before in the spirit of your reign." 6. And then utters an impressive doubt, which only deepens your admiration at his expressions of faith. If it be really true, he continues, 44:6, that ye are thus with the righteous order and the good mind, the God who looks upon the goodness of the heart and the activity of the hands, then give me a sign of it, that I may persevere and increase in the depth of my homage while life shall last. 7. For the struggle, though not yet without signs of a favorable issue, was far from over yet, hence his misgivings. He then asks with some wistfulness after the Aredra, the men that could help, who from the experience of the grace of God could turn sorrow into blessing by establishing the holy religious system firmly, but with enlarged and not narrowed understanding, and still a little dispirited, he declares, as so often, "None have I other than you, therefore I can wait for the Aradra. Do ye save us alone by your already offered means of grace?" 8. For ye have given me already, as it were, a sign, the enemy are checked, and for the moment cowed, if they are not repelled, they among whom there was death for so many when they had the upper hand, and when their ruler persecuted the holy vows, are not only struck with terror by the action which we take, but their chief retribution is, as we hold it, spiritual, and therefore in the eye of truth, the more severe. They will not encourage righteous order and righteous intentions, and accordingly the personified good intention grieved will depart from them. 9. Yea, he reiterates, amplifying the unfortunate sinners who depart from thy kindly and sacred piety in this ignorance of all experience of thy good mind will suffer an equal desertion. The characteristics of righteousness will in their turn avoid them as the unclean creatures flee from us. 10. And this is, thus he continues, a sign of result which the All-Wise declares to me to steady my soul as I waver, and these are indeed the cheering proofs of thy favor, he adds, addressing Ahura, which terrify our enemies, and advances, giving us a righteous eminence. 33:14. In thy kingdom. 11. Therefore, that kindly piety whom these desert in their judicial ignorance will increase for us both in the all-comprehensive blessings, spiritual deathlessness, begun in anticipation here, and its necessary condition, welfare, and they shall be increased as food, for Mazda's straitened people are better, to his glory as their monarch, and by their means Ahura may defend himself efficiently from the persecuting and idolatrous foe. 12. Taking into consideration all that depends on a correct understanding as to religious and political duties, he fervently prays to be guided aright in the establishment of the ceremonial and of praises, beseeching Mazda to speak, declaring the kind of worship which they may secure the ashes, which are the blessed rewards, and he acts to be taught those religious paths about which no error was possible, the paths which are the good mind's own. 13. After a fashion already known to us, as in 29, he answers this question himself that way in which Ahura had already revealed as the good mind's own, made up of the revealed precepts of the Saoshyants, saviors, there, as in the paths where Ahura dwells. 33:5, 46:16. The well-doer may prosper from his devotion to the religious truths and gain a reward immediately from the hand of God. 14. And if never forgetting the original calamity, the woes of the kind, he further declares that way to be the one of the chosen for this earthly life as the vestals to this heavenly one, and he asserts that they who toil for the kind he represents here as generally the holy settlements, as well as their chief source of riches and support, are striving to further and demonstrate the wisdom of that way by every righteous contrivance. Nay, he declares that the deeds of piety are themselves the highest wisdom, just as the words and righteous actions of the Saoshyants not only declare and make, but constitute the way. 15. Again concluding with a climacteric and synoptical prayer, he beseeches Ahura to speak and reveal to him all the most available statements, ceremonies, and praises, and never forgetting that all ceremonies, hymns, and sacrifices, sacred as they are only means to a greater end. He prays to the deity that he may exert that sovereign power which is alone supremely efficient in relieving actual distresses. 53:9. Might want to see that too. 4. By its holy laws and spiritual arms, it can alone bring on the frashakard and produce that condition in society which all human progress shall have become complete. Well, see, rather than what we kind of have now today, that's, in the Bible we have the word tzion, which came to mean setting a shining example. Translation. 1. As to those 3 gifts of blessings, immortality, the righteous order, and the established kingdom of welfare, which thou, O Mazda, hast given through holy deeds, words, and the sacrifice unto these, thy servants, here in my sight. Gifts shall be offered by us in return to thee, O Ahura, and with the foremost of them all. 2. Yea, and those gifts of the good spirit have been given back in gratitude to thee by the mind and the deed of the bountiful man, whose soul goes hand in hand with the righteous order and the settlement and homage towards the one like you, O Mazda, and with the chants of the thankful praisers. 3. And unto thee, O Ahura, we will offer thee thankful meat offering with self-humbling praise, and to thy righteousness like thee in person, and for all the settlements in thy kingdom which are guarded by the good mind. For in the perfect preparation of the justly acting has that offering its power. O Mazda, together with all others of its kind, among those like you and worthy of yourselves, it is a blessing. 4. And we pray likewise for thy fire, O Ahura, strong through righteousness, as it is, most swift, most powerful, to the house with joy, receiving it in many wonderful ways our help. But to the hater, O Mazda, it is steadfast harm, as if with weapons hurled from the hands. 5. What is then your kingdom, O Mazda? What are your riches? That I may become your own in my actions with the righteous order, and thy good mind to care for your poor in their suffering. Apart from all, would we declare you, yea, apart from the Evas and Craftstra, polluted mortals. 6. If thus ye are, in verity, O Mazda, with the righteous order and thy good mind, and grant ye me a sign of this in the world's entire abiding, while I live amid its scenes. How offering sacrifice and praising you the more devoutly may I approach you in my worship. 7. Where are thine offerers, O Mazda, thy helpers, who as the enlightened of the good mind are producing the doctrines with wide mental light as inherited treasures, delivering them as thy word, in misfortune and in woe? I know none other than you. Do ye save us through your righteousness. 8. Through these are deeds of sacrifice and zeal. They are terrified, among whom there was once destruction, and for many at the time when the oppressor of thy holy vows was as the stronger oppressing the weaker. They who have not thought in consonance with thy righteous order, from these thy good mind abideth afar. 9. They who desert my bountiful piety, O Mazda, that one desired of thee, O thou omniscient, and who thus abandoned her by reason of the evildoer, and in their ignorance of thy good mind, from such as these, Aramate with her holiness utterly departs, as the red Crafstras, who destroy and pollute all life, flee from us, thy faithful servants. 10. Through the action of this, his good mind, as he works his grace within us, the benevolently wise, one who declared a result as its fruit, he knowingly, the bountiful piety, the creatrix of righteous beings, these all, O Mazda Ahura, in thy kingdom, are helps to our progress. For they smite our tyrants with fear. 11. And for thee hath Aramate, who is our piety, increased both the universal weal and its continuance in immortality, and with them is ever united the righteous, ritual and moral order, established and made firm in the kingdom of thy good mind. Those powerful lasting too hath she increased to give us the needful food, and through these, O Mazda, art thou with thy perfect expellers of hate. Thou removest thy foes afar. 12. What then are thy regulations? And what will thou, what of praise, are of fuller offering, speak forth that we hear it, O Mazda? What will establish the blessed rewards of thine ordinance? Teach thou us in paths through righteousness, those verily trod by the good mind, and as he lives within thy saints. 13. Do I ask what is that path? That way which thou declarest to me as the path of the good mind, O Ahura, is made in its parts by the religious precepts and the laws of the Saviors, wherein the well-doer thrives from his righteousness, and it marks for the good a reward of which thou thyself art the bestower. 14. For that reward, O Mazda, ye have given as the one to be chosen for our bodily life, through the deeds of thy good mind, and us, they who work in the toil of the mother kind. These further your merciful care through the understanding's action, and taught by thine orders word. 15. Yea, show me, O Mazda, that path and its reward. Tell me the best of truths. Reveal the best words and the best actions, and the confessing prayer of the praiser through thy good mind, living within us, and through thy righteous order, O Ahura, and by your sovereign power and grace, mayest thou make life really progressive, till perfection shall have been reached. And let's return here with the comments. Is it the good mind? In the section called The Doctrine of Dualism, if you want to listen to that program to see that in full. Otherwise, the Ahura Mazdas are O Mazda and the Ahuras, God and his angels, basically. I think that the most natural rendering according to the grammar should first be given, notwithstanding something uncommon about it. All the Ahura Mazdas has been seen as by Roth in chapter 31:4. Now, in the Bible, where it talks about the plurals of the Muhammad, the Muhammads, you can think of that the same. Well, the Muhammad being referred to, and those of the cause, right? The Pahlavi has a gloss there later in the verse. So, readiness to meet thy people. Igsan Hamishako Han Gaman Madame Tanu E Pasino Ku Nisno, needlessly enlarged, of course, but showing the proper root, which is mit. So, Spiegel says, are possibly sustaining the feeble. The Pahlavi reads simply dead runiso. No, dead runisno. Oh, yeah, long O. The benefits is referred to here, and we see for there our thoughts. We're in verse 9 there. The Pahlavi renders Hathra in the Indian sense as Asar endlessly. So others elsewhere, Hathra and Yathra, are of course distinctly in antithesis. The Pahlavi Mahano, the Persian Makan, that Ma'etha is an adverbial instrumental meaning in one's home, seems the more probable from the two Hathra, Yathra, adverbs of place, getting around the tumbly. Compare, for instance, the Athra, Yathra in 46:16, where Sha'eti follows, and Hubschmann says, Dort Mogen unsere Sinne sein, wo die Weisheit thront. And see also Husitois in the next verse. The Persian manuscript has Duno Ham Ma Ke An Tu Hastam Ku An Tu Wes Hastam In Rastahiz Kardan Andar Gehan Ke Menissen Bed Ku Menissen Pa Darad As Anga Da Na I Hast Ku Ahir E Kis Pa Naki Be Danad Andar Makan. And the Pahlavi for this note in good repute, verse 10, we have Moon Vadund Zak-i Sapir Namiki. They're creating a good repute as if Zazente were understood in the sense of produce. See the sense. Bear is given for ha. The Rig Veda stands at 843, or 2 of 1017. The analogy, however, is not strong. The Pahlavi translation and honor, the last of verse 10 there, may be rendered as follows: that in the dispensation, in the latter body, the Droog, who is Ganrak Minavad, will be overthrown when his host is scattered. Thus they move keenly on to seize the reward which is attained through the good citizenship of Lohu An. When they shall have dwelt in piety, they who are creating a good renown are thus moving on towards Ur Harmazd and Ashavahist, as opposed to the Drugvant and what is the variation? What is Ahraman in that language? That is, the person who is of good repute goes forward to seize the reward. The good struggle of good and evil. And once more, O ye who are learning, verse 11 here. The anomalous form, Amuk Tisno, meets us in the Pahlavi. May this not be intended to express learning, whereas Amuz Isno would express teaching. I hardly think so. The Pahlavi translation of the happiness is only remotely, if at all, responsible for Havitika as Sua Spanta. This would require Havita as Havata with Avata, not but with difficulty comparing Yim and Yem. It is generally considered now as as equals hu ite. Oh, now considered as hu ite, but the letter equals seems doubtful. Okay, and the sorrow read aneti with impeded progress. In prosperity or adversity. Kind of sounds like a wedding vow, right? But these are conjectures. The Pahlavi for shall be the portion, so that's the last note in this dualism part. A e tuno akar val mansan a ito naduke. I do not think we ought to regard the words of the original as expressing universal restoration, but they may well have given the first indication towards this latter view. Literally, they state it, but not when correctly understood. The supplementary note, the Pahlavi word yomai, which transcribes Yasna in verse 4, cannot mean by day. Its imperfect form induced the translators to translate Ruzha and Bu Mandel, but these scholars, as in many other instances, hinted at a correction. And Roth, we're on to the progress of the cause, 47. Let me find that. Okay, we're on to translation of verse 1. Words now till unheard. Roth has wollen wer worte kunden ungern gehort von denen welche nach des unholds geboten, etc. Hubschmann preferring wer sprechen wort nicht an horbar für diejenigen. A datative of the pronoun is certainly more natural than the ablative as instrument, but on the whole, Augusta seems better in its ordinary sense, although in so rendering we are obliged to supply a word. And the doctrinal vows, we have Val Mansan Mun Pavan Afrin Ga Ni E Drug Zak E Ahara Yi Gehan Bara Maren Kin, and the Pahlavi for Hartley devoted to Ahura. The end of that verse may be rendered as follows: both these benedictions, which we recite as yours, the Avesta and the Zend, we are teaching by word to him who is no hearer, to the destroyer of sanctity, the heretical persecutor, those who utterly slay the word of righteousness through the benedictions of the Drug. Even those might be an excellent thing if they would cause progress in what belongs to Harmazd. And the indubitable truth, verse 2, read perhaps ad vao. See the Pahlavi otherwise. The way advao as pantas, but the participle is at a location, does not agree. Compare for meaning kavim adveyantam sakha adveyas. The Pahlavi reading that are not seen in the soul has in the soul freely by believes. Pavan nikiris no la hem nun endo aspavan sak e aguman ike. The general indications are to be observed. And compare chapter 29:2, where the Ratu is discussed. Here the word might be abstract. Discussing who the ruler is. And we have the talk about the struggling bands, saying a lot of the dualism, but it's not dualism, yes, no, black and white. And Roth has Yasser Biden Partayen from Yasna 31. He repels and condemns the evil, so the righteousness mentioned in verse 2 there we have, and he hollows and helps the good. Most striking is the word is the use of ma'inu. It is the spirit. Well, he says equals God and his spirit. It is also used of man's spirit. Well, as if we ignore the Zervanism influence, it could be said, okay, here's the creation of this, but there's a slight leading towards the Christian doctrine of the Holy Ghost here. So yeah, and next in that same verse we have the two battling sides. Okay, are from the two arena, but see aseyao in verse 2. The Pahlavi translator has avo pat kar darano shnaktari. So uniformly in Yasna 43:12, K5 in most manuscripts except K4, and likewise accepting the printed BVS, read Rano Ibyo, which excludes the dual form, and also the fire is not mentioned there. It is, however, far from impossible that the present Pahlavi translation may be a growth beyond an earlier one, more in accordance with the Arana. The strivers or fighters might describe the two rubbing sticks. And for the seeing in verse 3, Imar Vigardar. This meaning suits the connection admirably. The word is otherwise difficult, and this general sense is followed by some who do not so often cite the Pahlavi translation. And then we turn on to verse 1. And wrath towards the end here, making all the living believers, has we ik alle lebenden bekeren Saul. So the general indication of the Pahlavi translator, Pavan whose vano I lak zivan dakan harvest gun hemnund, observe the religious system, contemplate a universal proselytism. But, not by force, but, you got to have people authentically accept the faith, right? The general indications of the appeal, as verse 4 mentions, Kari tuntar and bavi hunam point to the proper sense. And both with wrath, or as Maz does, all that stuff in the Bible, the yah or the al at the end, wrath has wir, kik, sik, rufen, lassen, di, ahra, mazdas, otherwise O Mazda and the Ahuras. Hubschman also maintained that Mazda'u was here a plural. And he says that in regards to Yasna 30, verse 10. And wrath, in regards to the I will pray in verse 4, renders Esha sa in accordance with the Pahlavi Arbite ek. And later that, whose force? Mun Pavan Zaki Valman Gurdi Kushido Drogo Ai sufficiently indicates the proper sense, both krafteren werden unhod de meistern mogen. The Pahlavi reference to the lie demon may be rendered thus: since in the disposition of the final body I shall be an invoker of Ashavahist, and of Ur Harmazd also, and of her who is veneration, Spendermad, I desire that the best of things, which is the reward of the Bahuman, let also the authority which belongs to my people be from the strong one, by whose fortitude the Droog is overcome. And we have, yes, he gave, his lot is with verse 5.